Coast Alert Weather Show is brought to you by Bresky Siding.
And good Thursday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Easlick with your Thursday night weather update. For the 23rd night in a row, it is cold. And so we are going to talk cold temperatures once again. But hopefully some improvement comes next week. It seems like we'll have a chance to warm up a little bit more going into next week. And seems like we'll be able to get rid of at least some of this wind chill level that is causing the cold weather advisories that we have seen so many times recently. But we do have one more round at least early tomorrow morning. These go until 10 o'clock. And it's for the entire TV5 viewing area. So generally speaking, these are for about 15 to 20 degrees below zero. However, the counties to the north in the northern half of the area, so basically Roscommon, Ogemaw, and Iosco County, those areas are under a cold weather advisory for wind chills that could be about 25 below. I do think there's an outside shot. Some of those areas that are in the far north, this region right here, don't necessarily think it's impossible that some of them could reach as low as maybe about 25 to 30 degrees below at various times through the night, but it just might not be consistent enough for that extreme cold warning. And so an advisory is what the Weather Service in Gaylord decided to go with. And we'll see what happens with that. Doesn't mean that as we go through the night and conditions start to unfold, doesn't mean they can't change that. And we'll see how that adjusts through the night and kind of go from there. But frostbite times at least 30 minutes or less when it comes to temperatures that are this cold. Right now it doesn't really feel too bad compared to what it could be later on tonight. Saginaw around 0. Midland at 0-2, but we've still got a few places like Marlette and Harbor Beach pushing about 14 to 20 degrees below zero. So there are cold areas, not trying to diminish that, but I think one thing that is going to be helpful for those who do want to see their students in school for tomorrow is the fact that the winds are pretty light for tonight. So you might be asking yourself, well, how in the world are we going to get cold wind chills if the winds are light? Well, once you start getting temperatures that get down to around 0, 10 below, or even a little bit further below 0 than that, it really doesn't take much wind to make that even colder. So even a light wind of about 5 miles per hour can really have an effect if your actual temperature is roughly about 10 to 15 degrees below 0. So I don't think the wind is going to be a huge factor for tonight. And the calmer it is, the better chance I think we have to get some schools in session for tomorrow. I know there are mixed feelings on that, of course. We do have parents who need the kids to be in school because there are some districts where I'm sure PTO for parents who are lucky enough to have it, I'm sure that is running low. I'm sure there's been a lot of days with grandma and grandpa for other situations, and I'm sure there's been some times that some students have found their way to the office with their parents regardless of the situation. I'm sure there's more for parents hoping that their kids are in session for tomorrow. It seems like we've got a better shot than last Friday. Now, we do have some closings and delays that have come in. And so let me see if I can pull those up for you really quick. There's only 4 of them at the moment. So let's just fade right over here. We've got Augrey Sims. They are closed Friday. New Millennium Academy, Sterling Schools are closed on Friday, in State Street Academy. But State Street Academy, I'll actually have to check. They've had, if I remember right, that one might be more due to a boiler issue. I know they were closed earlier this week, so I'll have to just see if nope, they're just saying no school Friday. So maybe it's related still. They're maybe not saying it. Or they fixed it and they're still going with the closure regardless. But only 4 for now. We'll see where they stand in the morning. And I think a lot of districts it could be a close call. So I don't think there's a guarantee that school happens, but I also don't think there's a guarantee that school is closed. So let me just check the comments. I'll pull up the future wind chill here. Good evening, Denise, Wendy, Caleb, Kristen, Nick, Andrew. Will Bad Axe have school? I think it's a close call for places like Bad Axe. I think there's a chance the thumb could be a little bit colder. I could see the thumb kind of going either way. This projection that you see kind of in that area for Port Hope and Bad Axe, this model that does the futurecast wind chills for us, that was overly cold in this area last night. And it didn't even come close to some of the numbers that it was saying. So for Port Hope, it was projecting last night to have wind chills closer to about 25 to 30 below zero this morning. We didn't even get close to that mark. So I think it may be overdoing it in that area. But the one thing that Huron County has compared to some other regions is the fact that skies may be just a little bit more clear and broken in the thumb, which could allow the actual temperatures to fall off a little bit more there. And while many areas will go light with the wind, some of those areas could stay up a little bit more and potentially push some of those wind chills over the edge. So I think it'll be a closer call in Huron County than, say, somewhere around the Tri-Cities and Bay region. But I really think it's a coin flip for a lot of districts in the morning. And if we go through time here, let's just go up to, 3 o'clock in the morning. For as many numbers that you see that are close to, 15, 17, 22 below zero, you've also got a lot of areas like Midland here who are only down to around 1, Flint at 9, Alma 8, Mount Pleasant 3. And then if you go even just an hour forward, some of these areas are still only in that range, or some of the areas that were a little bit colder have gotten a little bit warmer. So some of these numbers may not be quite as consistent this Friday compared to last Friday, but we've still got some areas that are cold. So some districts might just be waiting until the morning to just see how far we drop and what those numbers look like. So I don't think it's an easy decision tomorrow. The one thing that I think could factor into the equation for most districts is by the time we get to around 10 o'clock, most are within that 0 to 10 degrees below zero range, which is out of the advisory territory. So could it be something that districts opt for more of a delay scenario in the morning? I think that's possible too. So a lot of different factors in play for Friday, and I think it's one of those things where it is going to be a district by district thing. So we'll see what happens. Sue asked, what should be expected for the month of February? I haven't looked at the month as a whole, but I know about the first third of the month through the first 10 days or so. Seems like things are leaning more cooler than average rather than anything else. It's not as strong of a signal for cooler than average, so I wouldn't necessarily take it to the bank, but if you're hoping for a significant warm-up, I don't think that's on the way. Valerie asks about Flint tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I think that's a little too low for Flint. I think Flint will probably be between about 5 and 15 degrees below zero most of the time. And so if you look at some of these numbers like Midland, it fluctuates quite a bit. Saginaw fluctuates a little bit. It's at 9, then it goes down to 15. Owasso gets down to 13, but then gets up to, 5. So these numbers change quite a bit, and that could be a factor too. Nick, does the weekend look pretty clear? I got a snowmobile trip Saturday and then Frankenmuth Snowfest on Sunday. Yeah, we should be clear this weekend. I think high pressure is going to be around the state, and so I know this isn't for your snowmobile trip unless you're staying locally, Nick, but expecting some sunshine this weekend. I really don't expect a ton of wet weather. I don't think there's a ton of lake effect either. Seems like most of it, I can't say all of it, but most of it will probably be out over the lakes if it happens at all. So I don't think you'll run into too many snow showers this weekend. And then Frankenmuth Snowfest on Sunday, it'll be cold, but I don't think we're looking at anything other than that. Tabitha, we've been having issues on and off with the boiler system in our building in regards to the New Millennium Academy. Okay, so was New Millennium one of the ones that was closed? Yes, okay. So that's good to know, Tabitha. I know you're far from the only school that's had some boiler issues. And I know, like I mentioned, State Street Academy earlier this week, I think it was Monday, they closed more for a boiler system than they did for the cold, if I remember right. And Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being cautious, Tabitha. Especially if you're having boiler issues. There is no doubt it is better safe than sorry, because you do not want those students at school if, for whatever reason, it decides that it's going to go out in that moment. So I think that's the right call for a school if you're not sure that's going to be working properly for the entire day. And for what it's worth, I've just trying to provide the perspective, not necessarily because Tabitha brought that up, but just for everybody in general. We're walking a really difficult line here, because we do have a lot of districts that are trying to, save as many days as they possibly can, because we've got a whole nother month of winter here before we actually, start to really see warm-ups more consistently. I know March can be cold too, but a lot of these districts seem to be looking for any sort of window that they can preserve days. I know they have said, we've even had them on our air say that regardless of how many days, they will be closing when student safety is at risk. And so, no, these decisions aren't made lightly. I can promise you that. I've learned quite a bit from local superintendents this year. And so we'll see kind of where things fall tomorrow morning. But yes, Tabitha, if again, you guys are looking out for your students, and I think that should be appreciated for sure. Jonathan, I know -20 is often the spot, give or take a little, depending on the districts and closings. Teach in the Bay City area, and I'm betting we'll be in session. Jonathan, if you asked me tonight, and this is unofficial, this is only gut feeling, so nobody take this to the bank, but I do think there will be more schools in session tomorrow than not. Because again, if you look at these numbers closer to about the bus stop times, if you look at Bay City, because Jonathan was specifically talking about Bay City, we'll use that as an example. I mean, you've got -8. Now, does it mean Bay City is -8 the whole time? Does it mean Bay City can't hit -15? No. But I think there's a chance, especially with the light wind tonight, there could be more fluctuation than, say, last week on Friday, when not only we had a really cold night, but we had a stronger wind throughout the night. So if that wind really calms down and we only drop to, say, 6 or 7 below in Bay City, well then, you're in a position where the wind chill is not as much of a factor, and you're not getting that drop towards 15. So again, if I had to guess, I think more are in session than not tomorrow. But it's not a situation where if a district closes that I would say it's the wrong choice. Not that anyone cares what I think when it comes to those decisions, but I would say that it's such a close call for some of these districts tomorrow. And again, at the end of the day, I know student safety is the top priority. And so, I don't think there's a wrong way to do it tomorrow, unless those numbers are super low and districts decide to stay open at -30. Then we can have a conversation about that. But tomorrow I can see it both ways. I really can. I think it's that close to kind of the border. Let's see. Nice to see you, Sue. Jeremy, what is the month of February looking like for snow in the Thumb area? Let me see if I can pull up some of the climate outlooks for the month. Let me pull up, just for anyone interested, we don't expect a ton of snow the next couple of days, so I'll just kind of let the 7 days sit here so you can at least see some 20s on it for next week while I look up the longer term outlooks here. For the month of February, I can actually pull that up for you. This is the temperature outlook for the month of February. Not necessarily a slam dunk for cooler than average temperatures, but not above average temperatures either. Gives us about an equal chance of both. The early part of the month, if I go over to the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, which takes us from February 6th to 12th, that has a better than average of below average temperatures. But then if we go to the 1 month outlook, it's not as much of a slam dunk where half the state has equal chances and half the state doesn't. So perhaps it's a cooler than average start to February and maybe closer to average or above average to finish. Or that can be interpreted as there's just no clear signal for the entire month for everything else. So we'll see what happens with that. Precipitation-wise, Jeremy asked about the thumb. Precipitation-wise, seems like we've got a better chance at above average precipitation for the month of February, which, assuming temperatures are near average or below, would probably bring higher prospects for snow. These outlooks aren't perfect, of course. If they were, we'd have a lot better of a reputation in the weather enterprise, but they are usually pretty reliable if you look at them in a general sense. And then even in the 8 to 14, it looks like we've got an equal chance of above or below average conditions, so not a clear signal there for precipitation in the next 2 weeks. But below normal, if you only look at February 4th through the 8th for precipitation. And considering how this 7-day looks, if we fade back to this, that seems to fit. We really just don't have a ton of chances for wet weather going into the first part of February. So we've got a couple snow chances on there. I don't think they'll be terribly significant as far as any big snowstorms or anything like that. So, yeah. I appreciate you, Tabitha. Thank you for saying that. That's really nice. But yeah, that's kind of where things stand tonight. Again, not to cut our stream short, because I usually love having these conversations for a while, but really there's just not much besides the fact that it'll be cold. There's not really much lake effect this weekend. There's maybe some light snow that brushes the thumb, but beyond that, not really too much. Wind chills into the weekend aren't bad. I think we get it above zero both Saturday and Sunday in the afternoon. If you look at the winds for both days, Saturday's only, that's a school visit I went on, wrong graphic, but shout out to the Freeland Learning Center. But if you look at Saturday, about 5 to 15, and then Sunday, I would say probably about 5 to 10 miles per hour at the most, and much of the time probably closer to 5. So it should be a nice weekend. It'll just be cold, but you shouldn't have any travel trouble or anything like that. And Jonathan, yeah, when we're all looking forward to 20s, it's been cold. Midland Public School employee Wendy, and absolutely. I do know Midland is in good hands with those who are making the decisions. I talk to them every once in a while, so I can assure you for that. And appreciate that also, Jody. So that is our update for tonight. I hope everybody stays warm. Hopefully everyone's, pipes and all those types of things, we don't have issues with those. Hopefully everyone is safe on the roads, those types of things. And we'll, of course, talk to you on the next stream. And hopefully we'll have something other than cold to talk about sometime soon. It's good news for those who like winter sports. I know I'm seeing a lot of ice shanties out on the river. I'm seeing a lot of ice shanties out on the Saginaw Bay and the Great Lakes. So thrilled for that, just because I know it's been a challenge the last couple of years at times. But I'd settle for 20s instead of teens. Meet in the middle. How about that? So hopefully everyone has a wonderful night. We will see you next time. And until then, have a wonderful Friday.